Okay. I'm hoping I don't have to retake this. I hope this is the last time. I really hope. But it is a new moon in Virgo, and I am a Virgo moon. So the perfectionism right now is just... Oh my gosh. We're all working on something. So my goal here is to talk about relationships, actually. And please don't mind me sitting like not a normal human. And I'm trying to not say as frequently. Bear with me. I want to talk about relationships. That's the goal. I said not okay? I've developed a rather unique or maybe different way of viewing relationships and doing relationships, I guess. Because you change your perspective, then everything changes. So over the course of a lot of shitty experiences, I started to learn, surprise, surprise. My perspective changed quite a bit. And it changed in a way that it brought more peace and harmony into my relationships and to myself. I feel like a lot of relationships these days are very driven by the ego, and not in the best way, because don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with your ego. But when you're reacting from the ego, for instance, that is a little... I wouldn't do that. Sometimes we can only do so much. Sometimes, like, we're human. Things trigger us. So I am going to go over some things that I learned so that hopefully you have an easier time than I did learning these things. Maybe in a perfect world, we will all be able to bring more compassion and peace and harmony into our relationships. I think a big thing is people take things too personally, and in a lot of ways the perspective that I have adapted helps with that. It helps, at least. So let's just get into it. By far the most important thing to understand, and I constantly have to remind myself, like, I'm always reminding myself of this, because it completely flips things around in my mind. And it's a great tool if you want to actually grow, if you don't care. Ignorance is bliss. So I don't blame you. Sometimes I just can't stand being so freaking self-aware, because I catch myself all the time and I'm like, girl. So, the most important thing is that your relationships are literally just a reflection of your internal, of your relationship with yourself. And that includes, like, or for example, your internal dialogue, you know, how, and I've been trying to be kinder with myself just recently. I still am. It's still a work in progress. Like, I'm super critical of myself, and I'm getting better at it. also your core wounds will tend to reflect in the people that you attract. For me, I have felt abandoned a lot. That's my biggest, deepest, I would say, wound. And I'm just putting it all out there like it's nothing. So I kept feeling abandoned by people. Duh, right? Come to realize that I actually was abandoning myself first, because I would get into these relationships where I would lose myself and I would prioritize the other person instead of myself. So I was giving from an empty cup. I had nothing left. I wasn't even, I was deprived of my basic needs. I was go, go, go. I cared more about the other person and their kid. That was the most recent relationship. I gave more to the other person and their kid and took care of them rather than myself, which I literally abandoned myself. And that breaks my heart. But there were other reasons too as to why I felt that way. Another term I would use is feeling left out in the cold, like the Five of Pentacles tarot card. I've kind of, and it's kind of sad, but I've kind of gotten used to people being temporary. Actually not totally sad now that I think about it, because everyone and everything is temporary. Change is constant. Growth is constant. So sometimes you just fall out of alignment with people. If you're on a very, self-growth, spiritual kind of path, like myself, and you're kind of elevating quickly, you literally just outgrow people. And even in the sense, or even just, for example, like your vibration, you end up not vibrating at the same frequency anymore, falling out of alignment. And it's like, I've had so many situations like that where it was like almost like, to me at the time it felt like I was being ghosted, but over time I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, I was just elevating too quickly, motherfucker, keep up. And especially like if you're growing at a rapid rate, and other people, the people around you, are not growing at all, which was my case a lot of the time, it was inevitable. I think most, if not all, probably all people come into your life for a purpose. I think there's always something to be learned or gained on both ends. Simple. And this was my case a lot of the time. That heartbreak was a catalyst to a level up or an activation to your spiritual journey, And that reminds me of twin flames, which I was always skeptical and iffy about, more so the label of it. But and I always ignored twin flame stuff, and then come to now, and I'm dealing with a situation with I'm like 90% sure. But it's what I've learned recently. This is something that I'm currently learning about, and I think it's actually really cool, is that there are different types of unions, twin flame unions. In my situation, it is a mirror union. I wrote a whole bunch of notes somewhere about it, but a mirror union is when you guys you're just mostly meant to activate each other, not necessarily like end up being together for the rest of your lives. It's not like that. They're supposed to trigger the out of you so that you grow and you get through. Oops. Don't hit me, Mike. So that you get through the gate, the threshold, or whatever, into the 5D, into that frequency. They kind of like push you there. It's a catalyst. It's an activation. And most of the time, you're not necessarily supposed to stay together. And I think that's where a lot of people have it wrong with twin flames. I think people think that, oh, they're the one. No, I mean, they play a significant part in your life, and it doesn't take away from the experience, because, oh my gosh, like, I literally look back at times of us together, and it literally, I look back at it and it feels like it didn't even happen, and it was like a dream. And it kind of breaks my heart talking about it too, because it's so tough. But I know that they're not the one. I know that there's more for me, and I know I deserve more. So also divine feminines, divine feminines tend to cross into that threshold, into the 5D, quicker than the masculines do. And sometimes the masculines won't even cross. Sometimes they get stuck. I can make a separate video on all this too, because it is really interesting. And also there are a lot of different soul connections that I could talk about, and I would love to do that. So people are either a lesson or a blessing. When this thing comes up and you ignore it, that's how you get stuck in these cycles. So after learning all this, I kind of just naturally ask myself, what is the universe or spirit or whatever you believe in, God, what are they trying to teach me or reveal to me in this situation, in this relationship? The universe works through people too, a lot of the time, whether you realize it or not. Pay attention. Start thinking that way. Now, circling back to falling out of alignment with people. So most people come into your life to serve this purpose, right? And they're not meant to stay there. And I think that's where a lot of people have things a little bit mixed up, because we get attached, of course. But once people serve their purpose in your life, you're supposed to let them go with love and go your separate ways, so that we can continue to grow, so that we can keep any kind of relationship, not just romantic, because you can be in a long-term relationship, don't get me wrong, and still grow significantly. But you're supposed to part ways so that you can keep learning from different people, different relationships, different circumstances, experiences, whatever, environments, oh my gosh, yeah, so that you can keep elevating, you can keep growing. Because for me, and I don't know, I'm assuming it's for most people, relationships are a huge catalyst for growth because they hit. What's that? Did anybody else watch those, like, the beauty gurus? Like, so long ago. It has to be like 2015 or something. I was watching those makeup girls. I'm surprised I'm not one already. I'm in cosmetology school. You don't need cosmetology school to do makeup. And I learned hair and all that stuff, but I think I'm actually gonna go into makeup because it's what comes more naturally to me. Oh, we'll see. I don't know. Like I mentioned earlier, after this person that comes into your life serves their purpose, you're supposed to go on separate paths, right? Well, that's why the Matrix pushes the exact opposite. Therapy, you know, like, is it divorce, marriage counseling, or whatever? They're trying to do the opposite of what is supposed to help us grow, which is hilarious. Circling back to how relationships are just a reflection of your internal relationship with yourself. This brings me to mirroring. People are mirrors. Your relationships are mirrors. Everything is a mirror. I think some people tend to have more mirroring to them, if that makes sense. I tend to be a like huge mirror for people, so there's been so many situations where people have seen, for example, in me something that they don't like within themselves, and that freaks them out and they run the fuck away. A lot of the time people will mirror you something within yourself that the universe is trying to get your attention about, something that you need to heal or something that you need to transmute or alchemize. Okay, so I'm running out of storage on my phone, so I gotta make this quick. The more in alignment with your authentic self that you are, the more in alignment you will be with your divine counterpart, or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Soulmate, whatever. And yeah, I'm just gonna close out this because storage is gonna run out, so you'll see more of me. Trust. Alright, I'll be back. 2 hours.